Hello out there, everybody, and it is my Friday. Your experience may differ, but it's definitely my Friday, and I love Fridays because, gee, I sound like DeFranco. Well, anyway, I do love Fridays. It's Fundamentalist Fails. Once again, if you're here for the first time, welcome, welcome. If you are a long-term watcher, welcome back. It's another Fundamentalist Fails, and what better fundamentalist fails more, or what fundamentalist does fail more than Matt Powell? Because seriously, the man is interesting. So I hope you're doing well. It may be Thursday night for my friends in America. Welcome, welcome. But I decided to do this after seeing the debate with AJ and Kent Hovind, and I'd been seeing some of Matt Powell's stuff that just makes you go, wow. So we've got to always take Matt Powell and compare him with his idol, mentor, and quite frankly, the guy that he tries to emulate, Kent Hovind. And Kent Hovind, people say, oh, he's so stupid. I personally think he's really ignorant, but he's not stupid. He's got that cunning that con men often have. Matt Powell, I think, is just dumb. I mean, we always sort of say, oh, this theist is stupid, that one's stupid. And usually it just means they're ignorant of the facts. But the reason why I decided to do it was I was watching the debate between Atheist Jr. and Kent Hovind. And somebody in their chat said that Kent Hovind was literally a genius. Like literally they were like, he is an actual genius. And I'm like, I'm sorry, that is hilarious. Like that person is actually serious. I then was talking about sort of genetics, ice core samples, radiometric dating, and they said without any irony whatsoever that Kent Hovind was the expert on these things. The words were the premier expert on these things, which is just insane. That is insane. And I think that the person saying that is probably Kent Hovind. So these people think they are the experts on these stuff, but it's hilarious to see Matt Powell muddle his way through stuff that is absolutely terrible. Now, I've picked out a few clips that they're all very short, so I'm not sure how long this might be a shorter one. Maybe I'll do a couple of call outs to people. Hello, Austin. Austin debated Kent Hovind recently. Very good debate. Thank you. Let's Farm, good to see you. Marty, always good to see you. You're Victoria. Fantastic to see you. Optimus Rhymes, good to see you. Wow, there's some awesome people coming in. Thank you so much. Yeah, but usually I won't say, hey, this theist is stupid. I usually won't make that proclamation. Most of them are not. Matt Powell, I think, is an exception, and it's sort of very, 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 very horrible. Nice new intro. I haven't seen it yet, actually. Do we want to see Grayson's intro? I haven't actually watched it. I was going to watch it last night, and I sort of got caught up doing some last minute preparation for this. Let's see. Where is the hawk? Let's show this thing. New channel intro. There you go. There you go. No, you're gonna have to watch through it. I haven't seen this before, so this is a first time reaction. First time reaction here. Okay. So this is Grayson Hawk's new channel intro. We ready? Prepare yourself. Steel yourself for the hawk. Go, go. Free your thoughts and watch them fly. Oh, wow. Short and sweet. Okay. There you go. There you go. Awesome. All right. So that was the new Grayson's sexy new intro with some really, really like some porn music there. I'm joking, Grayson. It's great, man. Like it's really, really short and sweet. I love it. It's awesome. So So yeah, I usually don't call theists stupid. I usually don't say, hey, they're stupid. They're usually just ignorant of the facts. And by ignorant, we don't mean stupid. And that was something that I was seeing in the debate as well. Atheist Junior said to Kent Hovind, like, you're ignorant of this, and like the audience was like, oh, he's calling him stupid. No, no, no. Like, I am ignorant of how the universe started. I do not know. That is all that means, that you lack the knowledge of something. That's all it means. And I'm sort of seeing more and more of this conflation um, between people saying you are ignorant of this and you are stupid. Like, and I think intelligence is really poorly defined. Um, it seems to be an ability to assimilate new information, like the ability to understand and assimilate things quickly and understand them well. So I don't think it's very, very well outlined. Um, and people have pointed to, hey, we used to think that white people were smarter than black people. And it's like, yeah, but the tests that we had back 50, 60 years ago were culturally biased. They would be putting forth tests that people who had a Western upbringing could understand and others couldn't. So, but I will say, Kent Hovind is not a genius. There is no possible way. Like, there is no possible way. Um, did Donnie cut you off by saying anything to say to Kent at the end of the debate? Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. He sort of cut him off, saying that he endorses the killing of LGBTQ people. So the way that they hide behind that, and Matt Powell's guilty of this as well. Okay. Matt Powell is absolutely guilty of this as well. And that's something to understand. And I agree with you, Grayson. It's pretty horrible. They basically will hide behind, well, I'm not saying to kill them. I'm saying the government should do it. It's like, come on, dude, that's like a Nazi saying, hey, we shouldn't sort of exterminate anybody. The government should do it on our behalf. Like, come on now. That is no excuse. So I think that they really are horrible people. But I'll get into it and sort of show the first one. This is from Matt Powell's channel. Links are, of course, in below if you do want to punish your brain like I did. Austin Sims, good to see you. Good to see you. If Gender the genius, I'm a 5'11" supermodel. Yeah. If Kent's a genius, then I have a full head of hair that's thick and luxurious. Yeah, absolutely. I get what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think Donnie. I think he's not completely unbiased, but I don't. Is there a moderator that is completely unbiased? No. I will say he's the best theist moderator I've seen, because most of them are a lot worse than him about cutting you off and not letting you talk. I don't know. I think sort of going to something like your personal beliefs on or your beliefs on LGBTQIA plus stuff, right? I think that yeah, it is outside the scope of the debate. I will pay that one, right? I really would pay that one, because if you're arguing evolution, it's outside the scope of the debate. So I do agree with that moderation point. However, if Kent brings it up, or if he sort of brings up stuff that's tangential, my problem with Donnie is he won't stop him from doing it. So yeah, I think there's a bit of bias there, because he'll let him bring up in an evolution debate, where planets came from, and where the universe, like, really, in an evolution debate, Donnie, you know that evolution isn't these things. So Yeah, I kind of agree, Ken. He will put them back on topic, but Yeah. Yeah, and Vic, that's what I mean. Yeah, he wouldn't. He cut him. Didn't cut him off from calling him like Hitler and stuff. Yeah, yeah. So and that is due to. I mean, Donnie's position, and I kind of understand where he's coming from. I mean, Kent's his cash cow. Let's face it. He will bring in far more people than anybody else, kind of thing. So I kind of understand that. Anyway, this is Matt Powell. He's just like the man has the world's most punchable face, like seriously, and he is as thick as a brick. And I don't say that lightly. I rarely call theists stupid. He is actually not up to par in trying. You know, his grasp of things is rudimentary at best, and he doesn't seem to get any better. His arguments have actually gotten worse over time. And it seems like all he's doing is parroting Kent Hovind, worse than Kent Hovind, which is scary.
Either God created the world.
Oh, so this is why atheism fails the scientific test. You know, the scientific test, the one and only scientific test that we have, right? Because obviously there's only one scientific test. Obviously, you know, that's there's only one. The scientific test. Wow, you know, it's not that atheism fails scientific testing. Just to start off with, the whole premise of this is stupid. Like, your beliefs can't really be scientifically tested as insofar as your belief that something doesn't exist. For instance, if you believe that fairies don't exist, how do you test that belief? Well, you just don't see fairies. We don't see God. So I don't know what the hell he's talking about. I really, this is absolutely asinine to start out with.
The world created itself. Think about it.
So basically said,
either God created the world or the world created itself.
Okay. So that is called a false dichotomy, right? So it's the idea that either God created the world or the world created itself. It lacks any kind of. All I have to do to show that's a false dichotomy is present one other option, and that's aliens created the world, or the world was formed through natural processes due to gravity causing dust to come together, form into a molten ball, and cool. Like there's so many options you could put in here. Either God created the world or the world formed itself. No. It's just the natural gravity attracting stuff together, material together, that formed the earth. That's what we know in science. So, yeah.
Think about it. If everything was not created by an intelligent designer, that means that everything poofed into existence literally from nothing.
Yeah, so that doesn't mean everything poofed into existence literally from nothing. God poofed it into existence, according to you. God magicked it up. This is sort of the straw man that he's playing. It's not that, hey, quantum plasma sort of formed into space-time, matter, energy, all of these things. Like that's the Big Bang. We don't know where the universe came from, where its origin was. We can measure back to one Planck era or one Planck second after the presumed beginning, but we only know what happened from a certain point onwards. Like, and that leaves room. Like, there's a lot of theists who think that God did the Big Bang. Sure. Okay, you think God did the Big Bang. Okay. Fantastic. Great. I can't disprove that, but that doesn't mean I have to believe it because you haven't proved it either. So essentially what this is a shifting of the burden of proof. It's basically saying, hey, you've got to scientifically test where the universe can. We're trying. We're absolutely trying. But when he says the world, I don't think he's talking about the planet Earth. So he's really not specific on his terms. Because I think when he says the world, he's thinking of everything. But we know that the world, like the Earth, is not everything. We know that, but there's a whole universe out there. So he really is missing the point. I like this whole idea that, oh, you think it came from nothing. No, we don't know where it came from. But when physicists use the word nothing, they're not talking about a philosophical no thing. They're talking about no time, space, matter, or energy. And you can have a quantum field with no time, space, matter, or energy, but it still is something in the philosophical sense. So it's just a conflation between two uses of nothing. It really is.
That is a belief in magic and mysticism. That is sorcery. That's not science.
So this man thinks that God literally spoke, did a spell and spoke the universe into existence, like just miracled it up. And then man was created by God blowing on dust or blowing the breath of life into dust. And he calls science, like what we believe, as, well, we don't know the origin, but we do know that there was a rapid expansion of the universe very, very early at its stages, which had a number of possibilities it could come from. And he basically thinks that's magic. I don't even know what to say to that, but the projection is real. The irony is real, that he believes in literal magic, talking snakes, magic apples, being able to walk on water, parting of red seas, because, you've got the backing. He literally believes in magic, and he's accusing us of the same, because he's decided to strawman what we think happened in the early evolution of the universe. That's what he wants to do. I don't know where the universe came from, but I think that natural processes is a much more likely explanation than a magic man who lives in the sky, who wants to, who wants you to know him, but he hides, and wants you to love him, but he gets angry. And he's all good and all powerful, but he doesn't stop anything bad from happening. Oh no. And we'll get to that later. We'll get to the problem of evil later. Trust me on that, people. It gets wild when you get down at that level. But yeah, that's seriously. He thinks that, women were created from the rib of a man. God took a rib and magicked a woman out of it because the man was lonely. Seriously? It doesn't explain why in the womb everybody is female until like a chromosome switches on and you get turned into a male. Like, it really, that's why men have nipples.
A lot of people think that it's scientific to make the claim that the world could create itself.
No one thinks the world creates itself. And be more specific. Do you mean the Earth? Do you mean the Earth, or do you mean the universe? This is the thing. We don't know. It's sort of like saying, oh, somebody thinks that water can create itself. Yeah, it's called, condensation. If that's what you want to say, it's just a natural process. But you believe that water can create itself. Well, kind of, yeah, that's basically condensation, but it's a lot more complicated than that. It's such basic, simplistic thinking that if there is a natural process that occurs by itself, then it's creating itself. Like, it's such a reduction of intelligent thought to say, oh, you think that this created itself. Does a raindrop create itself? Oh, it's natural processes that create it. Yeah, funny that. And the funny thing is that every time we search for an answer to why these things are happening, it's always natural processes. It's never, well, raindrops magically come from the storm gods kind of thing. We never find that. We find that it is natural processes.
Check out this quote from Stephen Hawking. He said that because there are laws such as gravity, the universe can and will create itself from nothing.
Yeah, but what he's talking about, nothing there, is a quantum field. So you really should be sort of putting the nothing in air quotes as well. Like that nothing just means, hey, it's no space, time, matter, or energy. So he's really misquoting. And this is what they do. They quote mine people. They'll take it out of context. So, yeah.
So atheists really do believe that the world created itself.
No. For a start, it's the universe. The world is the Earth. Like that's the planet. Like this is the sloppy thinking we get from Matt. He doesn't understand scientific terms. That when you say the world, you're generally talking about Earth itself, like the world around us, the world. We generally don't mean the universe, or there could be a greater cosmos out there. There could be something outside the universe in some extra dimensionality that we're unaware of. We just don't know. So that was a postulate by Hawking. That doesn't mean it's what every atheist believes. An atheist could think that aliens created the universe, like hyperdimensional, super intelligent aliens, and they would still be an atheist because they don't believe in a god. This is the false dichotomy he's putting up. It either has to be God or it has to be this straw man that he's putting up there. It's such a disingenuous argument.
As wild as that may sound, as loony as it may be, that is what...
Oh, no, it's much more sensible to think that a magic super being who cares who you have sex with just poofed it into existence from nothing. No, that's scientific. That's the science right there. How exactly do we put the scientific test to that one, Matt? You know, the one and only scientific test that you're talking about.
But they believe. They think that that is actually based in science. But any of us who have studied the laws of thermodynamics know that matter cannot be created or destroyed. And so they claim that...
Yeah, matter cannot be created or destroyed. How does that work for you, God? Oh, that's special, is it? You wouldn't be pleading that is special, would you, Matt? Maybe doing some special pleading there? Like, what? No, and anyway, it's not matter cannot be created or destroyed. And he gets this wrong. Like, he gets it wrong. It's not matter cannot be created or destroyed. It's energy can't be created or destroyed. Matter is just one form of energy, right? So, but in quantum level physics, there's kind of some exceptions to those rules. That is in normal physics. You know, Einsteinian physics, Newtonian physics, matter can't be created or destroyed, sure. But its energy cannot be created or destroyed. And B, at the quantum level, some really weird things can start to happen. So there may be some situations where that can happen. We don't know. We literally don't know. So it's kind of like, well, probably, maybe. We don't know. Okay, let's get it started. Ooh. So I'm trying to keep an eye on my live stream, just make sure it's not doing anything absolutely problematic. Yeah, we're cool.
Before the Big Bang, everything was compacted down into an infinitely dense hot point, and then that hot point somehow exploded.
No. It's not infinitely dense. So when we're using the word infinite in that, it's not really. So there's two. Oh, and welcome to all the people from President Sunday. Night got raided. Caught me. Yep, I'm here. You caught me. Squid raid, absolutely. Bring on the squid. Yeah, for sure. All right, awesome. Big thanks to President Sunday. Does some amazing work. Yeah, I'd love to meet him one day. A friend of ours said that we should meet, but I'd love to meet him one day. That would be awesome. But when we're talking about infinites, usually in practical things, we're sort of talking beyond measurement, because the problem with infinites that we have, that we don't know if they can actually exist in the world. Like you might say, okay, but if you program a computer to do an infinite loop, right? We call it an infinite loop. It's basically just you have two functions pointing to one another with no changes in parameter, one will just loop back to the other. Like, it's just an infinite loop. It just keeps rolling. Is that infinite? No. And the reason why is the computer will break someday. The sun will envelop the earth one day. It's not actually infinite as in completely non-ending, and there doesn't seem to be many things that are. So can actual infinites exist in the universe or in reality? No. I don't think so. Maybe it can. I don't know. But sort of this idea that it's an infinite density, it's just beyond our ability to measure. Is it infinite as in it can never, ever reach the end of that measurement? We don't know. Because the problem with measuring infinites is that when you start to measure them, when do you stop? When do you say, hey, that is definitely will keep going forever? That's the whole thing behind pi. Does pi ever end? We don't know. Because when do you stop measuring an infinite to say, hey, it goes forever? We think pi is infinite, sure. But maths is an abstraction. It's a language to describe things in the real world. It's described as a pseudo-concrete. The numbers and the formulas are a language to describe reality. So it's sort of a bit different there. But can infinites exist? I don't know. But to say it was an explosion is a horrendous straw man. It's not an explosion. It is a rapid expansion. There's a big difference. And they love to call it an explosion. But nothing is sort of so an explosion is when there is a, usually chemical reaction or nuclear reaction, and it basically blows apart everything. That's not what's happening here. We're talking about a very, very rapid expansion. So this sort of idea that it's an explosion is a straw man to start off with. And, they love to do it. They love to call it an explosion. It is not an explosion. Absolutely not.
And created time, space, and matter. And like I said, that's a violation of the first law of...
Well, no. I mean, the time, space, and matter was created at the start of the Big Bang. I don't think the explosion created time. No. I don't think so. It's really weird. It's very weird to say that.
Thermodynamics. And even if...
Well, the law of thermodynamics says that I think he's talking about the second law. Is he talking about the second law of thermodynamics? Which is sort of the law of entropy. Like, things will always move toward a disordered system. And mostly any creationist quoting that law don't understand it. It means in a closed system, things will go towards disorder. And so it's important to understand what is order versus what is disorder. So highly energetic systems are order, and sort of highly chaotic systems are disorder. So the expansion of the universe is completely in line with that. The approach to heat death is like absolutely in line with that. Things have a tendency to go to that disorder, to those until no particles are interacting and it's completely chaotic. But I'm sure he doesn't understand what order and disorder is. Well, Austin, he says the world. I don't think he's talking about the planet like we are. I think when he says the world, he's talking about the universe. I think he's like, because he said, oh, you think the world came from nothing. And it's like, no, the Earth was accretion disks that formed into molten balls of, matter. So when he says the world, he's not talking about the Earth like we are. He's talking about the universe. It's just, look at this Labrador try and, pass through what the world and what the universe means. It's not adorable. It's just thick. It's just, yeah, that's not how we would describe the world. But I think that's how he's using it.
The universe just poofed into existence via a magic act that also violates the second law of thermodynamics, because that states that everything in order tends towards disorder. Nothing in nature really tends towards organization. It always tends
Yeah, organization. Well, so when you say nothing in nature tends towards organization, that's not true. So you can basically what it says, in order to tend towards order or organization, you need an input of energy. You need energy to be able to maintain that order, and without it, it will tend towards disorder. That's all that it's saying. So it's incorrect to say, hey, in nature, it always tends towards disorder. No, it depends how much energy is being put into the system. It doesn't mean that it never goes towards order. Um, it's just a complete misunderstanding of what the second law of thermodynamics is.
Towards disorganization. Everything is winding down in the universe, but evolutionists would have us think that everything is winding up, that everything's getting better, that rocks evolved. They don't just
No one thinks that rocks evolve. I mean, if you're talking about rock life cycles, like, you're talking about igneous rocks that sort of then change to metamorphic rocks, then change to sedimentary rocks. We're very, very sure that that is happening. We're seeing that almost in real time. But, I think he's trying to equate it with biological evolution, which, if you say evolution in colloquial talk, nobody thinks you're talking about, the stages of rocks. Like, nobody thinks that. It's this conflation that they do. Oh, yeah, no, this is the funny thing, mate. It's the Big Bang is a complete magic, but, God speaking the universe into existence, that's science. It's incredible. Hello, Robin. So good to see you. Yeah, rocks evolved. I don't know I'm trying to be as I'm trying to be as good faith as possible, but this guy is so bad faith, like he's just sort of saying, "Hey, you think rocks evolve?" Well, what do you mean by evolve? Do you mean rocks are subject to pressures that's changed their state? Sure. Do we think that they evolve like organisms evolve? No, absolutely not. What are you talking about? Like, seriously. And this whole idea that evolution is making things better is like, tell me you don't understand evolution without saying, I don't understand evolution. There is no better in evolution. There is only adapting to the environment around you. That is all. Like, there's no better and worse. If there is less energy in the system, then the organisms that will survive are the ones adapted to efficiency, right? They will be adapted to using less energy. The way that, say, bears hibernate, for instance, if there's a lot of winter and cold and there's not a lot of energy, they will hibernate to conserve energy. In fact, humans are kind of the same way. We love to curl up in balls and sort of, in wintertime when it's cold, we just love to curl up in balls. I mean, I do. I got to be honest. Maybe I'm a bear. Maybe. Don't clip that. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah, no, I met that guy, Austin. He seems interesting. He said he swore he would email me and organize an actual debate. He has not emailed me. So I said to him, hey, a lot of people lately, they've been saying, I want to debate you, and then sort of not showing up, not actually sort of making good on their obligations. He swore, he absolutely promised me. Looks like he was bearing false witness.
believe that life evolved. They believe that rocks evolved, that you had smaller rocks that somehow morphed into larger rocks.
Yeah, he just said that. Look, I don't know if he's been playing a lot of Pokemon lately. I'm not sure if he's 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 a rock bro in Pokemon. I don't know. I don't play that much. I do play a little bit of Pokemon. I don't play that much, but smaller rocks evolved into larger rocks. No, that's not how the life cycle of rocks works. So Usually it's igneous rocks are usually the big ones, sometimes, and they, because they form by lava, which is magma, gets pushed to the surface, becomes lava, solidifies into igneous rocks. Metamorphic rocks are those. Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of, Geodude. Thank you, Andrew. I was trying to come up with that name, mate. I'm so glad you're here, buddy. Like, igneous rocks are generally sort of, put under incredible pressure, or sedimentary rocks are put under incredible pressure. They're metamorphic rocks. They change due to pressure and heat and change their structure into metamorphic rocks. But, sedimentary are the ones that have been sort of, ground up and then reset in that sort of sedimentary state. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. I think he's trying to sort of talk about abiogenesis, to be honest with you. I don't know.
No joke. You can look it up. They think that all of this energy was compacted down and exploded and created larger pieces of rocks from.
Is he talking about accretion disks? Like, so basically, when you have like a whole bunch of dust kind of thing out there in the universe, or at least this is the scientific theory, that gravity will start pulling them together. They will solidify in sort of clumps just due to gravity, and then they will settle on, they will form molten balls of rock. But that's just gravity. That's not any kind of. I'm not sure why he's tying it to evolution. It's very, very strange.
This little piece of dust. It's much easier to just simply say.
No, you think that God breathed on dust and brought it to life? That a magic dude literally breathed on dust and brought it to life as humans? Like, seriously, you have the gall to call what we think magic, and but a magic guy breathing on, giving some dust a good huff. That's absolutely scientific. Yeah. Wow.
That God created the world and that the world did not create itself. The Bible says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth.
Yeah. Why should we care? Well, why would that be scientific? Why would we care? And that's the problem with having inerrant beliefs, like just having beliefs that must be true. You will ignore any other evidence. And this is what I pointed out. I had a guy on my channel here the other day, and he was sort of saying, hey, this is what the Bible says, and this is what AIG says. And the problem with that is that AIG, Answers in Genesis, their mission statement is to affirm, and I'm trying to remember the wording, affirm the inerrancy of the Bible. So nothing in science is inerrant. And so what does inerrant mean? It basically means that no matter what, that cannot be wrong, right? So it is basically incontrovertible. It is not able to be proven wrong in any way. And there's some things in science which would be overwhelmingly difficult to prove incorrect. Like gravity, or like, evolution's another one. There's so much evidence, but we do not say that things are inerrant or unprovably correct. Everything is up for questioning in science. That is the strength of it, not a weakness. And creationists think it's a weakness. They're like, oh, well, you're not sure about your beliefs. That's actually the strength of science. That's how it has gotten better over time. Because when you say things are inerrant, they cannot be wrong, you basically close yourself off from any kind of updating of your information or finding out what is more accurate. Everything can be proven wrong in science. Everything. It doesn't matter what it is. And this whole thing of inerrancy, like being absolutely sure you're right, doesn't make you right. All that it does is make you think you can't be wrong. That's all it does. There is no method there. There's no epistemology that would actually, give you certainty. All it does is just convince yourself, hey, I can't be wrong. I have to be right. And that's a dangerous place to be in.
And you can either choose to accept or reject that. The world did not create.
Yeah, I'm going to go for the reject, Matt. Thank you. And this straw man of the world did not create itself. Nobody thinks it did. And did the universe create itself? Well, there's another question. We don't know how the universe came about. Sean Carroll has a sort of a parent-child universe hypothesis. Other people have other hypotheses. There's things like multiverse, which is, we're not sure about that one, but that's the whole point. We don't know. We're not claiming to know. So why would we scientifically test something that we don't know? You're the one claiming to know where it comes from. So this is a massive shifting of the burden of proof, right? So it's just basically saying, hey, you guys don't know. I have an answer. You guys have got to prove my answer wrong. No, that's not how that works, Matt. That's not how any of that works. We don't know. So if you're claiming to know, you're making the knowledge claim, you have to prove that you're right, or at least demonstrate that you're right. Proof is a strange word in science. There's no absolute proofs like you're sort of saying.
Itself from nothing.
Science is the word to know in Greek. No. Science comes from scientia, which is Latin for knowledge. Okay, but that if so, a problem is that that's sort of what Kent Hovind says, and it's an etymological fallacy. So what an etymological fallacy is that basically it's when you take the etymological or the origin of a word, the source of a word, and use that source to give a definition for the word, right? So it's like basically saying that, hey, placenta originally comes from Latin for cake, so it must be food. No, that's not how that works. It is a fallacy because you're using it in a way that it's not used that way now, and hasn't. I mean, science hasn't been used that way for 200, 300 years, maybe. So we have an understanding of what science is now. It's been defined as a methodological naturalism. So it's a methodology of understanding or having knowledge about the natural world around us. Okay, so yes, it originally meant just knowledge. Totally. That's not what that word means anymore. And like in most dictionaries, it will have that definition in it, but it will have archaic in front of it. Like it will mean an archaic one that was used in the past, not used anymore. So yeah, that's the origin of the word. But just because the origin of the word meant something, it doesn't mean that it means the same thing now. It's like vagina means sheath. It doesn't actually mean the same thing now. Like seriously. Yeah.
Even NASA said this: although the Big Bang Theory is widely accepted, it will probably never be proved, consequentially leaving a number of tough and unanswered questions.
Yeah, so I mean, it's widely accepted. Will it be proved? Proof in science is a funny thing. There's no sort of global proofs. That a proof suggests that sort of inerrancy, that it is absolutely correct. And absolute knowledge isn't something that science deals with. There's no absolute knowledge in science. There's just our theories and models that we're up to. So there can be local proofs, though. And what I mean by that is you can say, prove that the flood of the Bible didn't happen. We can prove that. So we can sort of, I guess more accurately, we can disprove things. And NASA is acknowledging that. Sure, it's widely accepted. Probably never be proved. Well, we don't know. We really don't know. I don't know whether NASA did say that or not. Maybe he's cherry picking again. Widely accepted. Yeah, and I mean, it's supported by a ton of strong evidence, but it could be wrong. That's the whole point. And I'm not sure where he got this from. Like, I always question when someone like says, "Oh, NASA said this." Like, okay, can you give a citation, like where they said it? You know, maybe a website, or maybe, um, you know, maybe something a bit more, you know, although Big Bang Theory is the and this is the problem with thinking that you have some absolute truth. You expect everybody else to have absolute proof as well. Um, yeah, so from what I can see, they didn't say that. What they said is the Big Bang Theory is widely accepted, but it's unlikely we'll ever be able to directly observe what happened in the first moments after the Big Bang, which is a bit of a different statement, isn't it? Like, saying you can't prove it and start saying we can't directly observe it are two totally different things. So I think he is actually misrepresenting what NASA said there. So yeah, what they said was the Big Bang Theory is widely accepted, but it's unlikely that we'll ever be able to directly observe what happened in the first moments of the Big Bang. That's actually what they said. So naughty, naughty, Matt Powell, misrepresenting people there. I mean, I wish I could say that I'm surprised. I'm not surprised, seriously. You know,
Granite rock is incredible. We cannot create it. With all of our highest tech instruments, we can create diamonds, but we can't create granite. So I'm supposed to
what?
believe that a rock that cannot be created by man on purpose somehow created itself by accident. It's ridiculous. We believe in the creation model that life started on the land, but they will say
Um,
that life began.
Wait, we can create artificial granite. What are you talking about? What? Hang on a second. Hang on. I what? What the hell? Manufactured granite is a man-made product that's made by mixing and bonding resin, calcium carbonate, stone granules, and other materials. I mean, I suppose it's not exactly granite, but it's artificial granite. I what? I mean, it's not granite, of course, like, because that requires, like, here's the thing, granite, it's basically, it's a mineral that is like created in the furnace near the Earth's center, like, so underneath the Earth in magma, like the temperatures down there. Don't forget, we've only drilled, I think it was it 12 kilometers beneath the surface? How deep was that Russian tunnel um, drilled into Earth? I think it was about 12 kilometers. Yeah, 12,262 meters, or 12 kilometers, or 40,000 feet in um, in imperial, basically. At 12 kilometers, the temperature is 360 degrees Fahrenheit, and the pressure that you would need to have it crystallize that is incredible. Now we can replicate that, but we can't get, we can make artificial granite. We can't make the pressure and the heat that is at the center of the Earth. I don't know why we would be able to do that. You know, I mean, I'm sure we could. Why would we? Why would we, when we can just dig up granite? I mean, the power you would need to make that kind of heat is insane, like insane. Yeah, it's an igneous rock, so it literally is rock that has come from magma or lava cooling, so, and crystallizing. So why we would do that is beyond me. I don't know. It's interesting though. God created the world created itself. No, no. I think by world he means universe. Life started on the land, life began in the oceans. Yeah, yeah. Well, not really. There definitely was water involved at some point, sure. Life was eroded from rocks. That's ridiculous, like, seriously. Dinosaurs lived recently. And catastrophism hasn't been believed for ages. Like, that hasn't been a thing. Uniformitarianism absolutely replaced that. Jesus is the truth. Darwinism is that nobody believes in Darwinism. Darwinism is so outdated. We're currently up to integrated synthesis, which takes a whole load of different models in evolution, and they kind of work in tandem. So you've got your sort of Darwinistic evolution, which is just natural selection and passing down genes. You also have genetic drift. You have sort of in part of that integrated synthesis, you also have things like punctuated equilibrium. Although that's contentious, like, they do think that there is sort of parts where the evolutionary process is slower, if you will, because some organisms reach a state where they're perfectly suited for their environment. Like, it's so ridiculous to go back to Darwin. Darwin didn't even know about genes. Darwin knew there had to be a mechanism to pass down these traits from mother to daughter, or father to son, or what have you. And it seems like it's a combination of both of them. But he didn't know about genetics because they didn't invent that. It's ridiculous for him to say that Darwinism is the truth. Darwinism was a model that was not as accurate as the model we have now. That's it.
In the water or in the oceans. And in this Inside Science article, they say the first hefty organic molecule.
No. Oh, no. Oh, no. I didn't notice. Oh, my God. Somebody, please help. My hair has fallen off and I can't get up. Did life begin with a drop of water? Inside Science. I don't think water was involved, to be honest with you. Water sort of destroys the starting stages for here I was. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what hypothesis this is. Probably magma vents. I'd love to have a date on this. In a drop of water. I personally think the most probable one is amyloid world, which sort of says that chemicals formed into amyloids, which then started a selection process. But I don't know how life started. There's a lot of hypotheses that we have that sort of there's a lot of hypotheses we have of how life started. We don't know exactly how it started. Sure. Yeah. So this is just God of the gaps. And it's not saying life began in a drop of water. They're asking, did life begin in a drop of water? Is that one of the hypotheses we could put out there? Yeah, probably. I think maybe that water is detrimental to the way that those first protein chains form. But hey, articles from 2014. Yeah, okay. So it's only from a decade ago, Case. That's not too bad as far as creationists are concerned. You're a Southern Baptist. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that, mate. That sucks. Well, look, I totally understand. Like, I get it. It's rough. Yeah, no, and I really feel for you. But at the same stage, maybe we can look at it as, well, at least you're not still in it. That's something. You could be one of those people still believing this nonsense, and that's something. That's something. It takes a lot. Like, so when we're talking about these values that we're instilled in when we're young, we're talking about core values. No, it won't let you post a link unless you're a moderator, Case. But I got it, mate. That's all right. chemical reactions where two molecules combine to form a new one run much more quickly in this combined environment. To measure the speed of the reaction, fluorescence. Because the naturally occurring aerosols are clearly friendly to organic molecules, Vida and her collaborators previously suggested they could have nurtured the earliest building blocks of life. The new research, although it looked at a different type of droplet, still provides an explanation for how ancient aerosols could have stimulated molecular growth on the young Earth. Yeah, and this is sort of they could have stimulated growth, and it's possible that this happened. They're definitely not saying it did occur in a drop of water. That's not what they're saying.
Molecules may have formed.
But development of early life. Oh, damn. Oh, yeah, that's rough, mate. That's terrible. Wow. Ugh. Okay. Yeah, but here's the thing. Water definitely played a part in the early development of life. But we do know that. Whether it was there when life formed, we don't know.
Formed within tiny droplets. So what they're trying to say is that the first molecules that eventually formed into life were coming together inside of water. But if you were to type in on the internet, how does DNA get destroyed? The very first thing.
Okay, yeah. So how does DNA get destroyed? Via environmental factors such as UV light, ionizing radiation, and genotoxic chemicals. Yeah. Yeah, but we're aware that sort of water thing.
That pops up is this. It says DNA is vulnerable. It breaks down in sunlight and in water. They would have us believe that the RNA world where life came.
What? Can you not read? Is reading beyond you? There's a channel name. I mean, it's not like I'm hiding my name. This is hilarious.
Came from non-life was in a soup, in water. Well, water destroys biology. It destroys organic molecules. So to assert that life began in the water or in the oceans when it was raining for 2 million years is ludicrous. That's false. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools.
And here's your science. Here's the scientific. So instead of saying, hey, there's these mechanisms to create life. So the heating and drying and heating and cooling that's required in order for the protein chains to come together. We don't know that actually occurred on Earth. There is one hypothesis that sort of is a combination of panspermia and abiogenesis that said that, hey, the heating and cooling could be the rotation of the astronaut kind of thing, like a asteroid sort of thing. An asteroid rotating between the sun and the cold of space can do that heating and cooling process. That's one hypothesis. Thermal vents is another hypothesis, that it could have been protected by certain elements. Like, there's a whole bunch of hypotheses out there. Do we know which one is right? No, we're not claiming to. So taking the straw man of one of them, and like, why would you do that when we say, hey, we don't know which one is correct? If any of them, there might be another natural process that we're unaware of. Why would you say, hey, this is what we're saying, when we're literally saying we don't know? And we don't teach abiogenesis to high school students, for instance. No, the only way you're going to learn about that is going into a very specific biology class in, say, university or college or something. But it's not something we're sort of saying, hey, we absolutely know this. Evolution, though, is a different story. We've got a ton of evidence for that. But let's compare the scientific reasoning of, hey, this is a number of possible ways it could have happened, with the uber scientific Matt Powell way. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and a man became a living soul. Okay, you want to get scientific? How does that work? Right? Not what it happened, right? Not, hey, he breathed the breath of life. But if you're saying, hey, saying natural processes isn't enough, you've got to describe the exact process that abiogenesis happened. You've got to describe how these molecules came together. Can you do the same? Can you describe how the molecules of man came together from a God blowing on it? Or is it just that you are special pleading and want an exception because your belief is God? So you say, hey, I don't have to show how God did it because God. Well, if we have to show how natural processes do it, you have to show how God did it. And I don't, go for it. I don't see why there's this uneven standard of, well, if you say natural processes, you've got to show that process down to the nth degree, while we can just say, well, God. Well, God. Yeah, I don't see that as very helpful at all.
The Bible tells us that the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. So life obviously began on the land. And even if you had a single-celled organism that somehow magically was created out of this soupy mess, what's it going to eat? There's no other biology around. There's no other organic material. What's it going to eat? Hard rock? Think about it.
Yeah. Hey, do you know there is organisms that feed on rock? Actually, one of my favorites is lichen, which is actually an amalgamation, a symbiotic relationship between algae and algae and moss. Sorry, I just slipped my mind for a second there. So algae and moss. So they basically work together. The algae, fungus and moss. Sorry, the plant, the moss photosynthesizes, but it can't get nutrients. So the fungus uses acid to break apart the rock, kind of thing. And Matt Powell is one of the greatest idiots on this planet, and here's why. It's like sort of saying, well, where do trees get their energy from? There's nothing to eat. Are you okay? Are you all right? They photosynthesized, you idiot. Yes, part of their nutrients come from the soil, or rock, as you call it, minerals. It's so baffling to think like, well, there's nothing to eat, so they can't possibly survive. Plants, do they eat stuff? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? I mean, seriously. Oh, wow, we have a contender in the chat. Oh, let's check this out. This is awesome. Oh, I always love it when I get like people in the chat who are just, basically destroying themselves. It's fantastic. Let's go. Yep. Yeah, so Sarah's hassling my 2K and 50 people watching. Meanwhile, they don't have any content, and joined 6th of February 2024. Yeah, they're basically a troll account. Okay. Good one. Like, oh dear. Where's my stream? There we go.
There is nothing for it. It just is going to come alive, and then it's got to find another organism to reproduce with. The unanswered.
It's got to find another organism to reproduce. Oh, Matt. So how thick does somebody have to be? Does somebody have to be when they don't understand mitosis? Like, seriously, that cells split. I don't like it is so silly to think that a single-celled organism, it needs to find another organism to breed with. How do the mating habits of single-celled organisms work, Matt? Exactly. Wow.
Questions will remain unanswered by the evolutionist and atheist community on this matter, because they're not actually looking at things with a
No, they're not answering it because it's a stupid question. Where do they find another organism to breed? It's a stupid question. They don't need another organism to self-replicate. Whew. Yeah, no, this is dumb on a whole new level. Like, seriously, I usually don't call theists stupid. I usually think they're just ignorant of science. But Matt Powell, I will actually go out on him and say he is actually thick, like really stupid.
Scientific lens. They're looking at it with an emotional lens because they don't want to answer to God, and they don't want to admit that creationism is so strong. And it has a very powerful model that supports it in the scientific community, and they don't want to give it any credence at all.
Yeah, so the creationist model isn't even a model in the scientific community. What has happened is that some very ultra-conservative, ultra-literalist fundamentalists have paid some legitimate doctors who have this belief in God to represent them in creationism. Now, I think some of them are genuine. Some of them I think are phony. I think some of them are just doing it for the money. I think some are well aware that it's not real. But I think that, you know, this isn't even considered. Creationism isn't even considered in science. Like, it just isn't even considered as an option. And that doesn't mean scientists can't have a belief in it. They can believe in a God and believe in creationism and still do science. There's nothing preventing them. It's just, this is not even a hypothesis in science. In order to be a hypothesis, it's got to be somehow falsifiable. So my question to Matt would be, what is your falsifiability criteria for your creationism hypothesis, right? What is the evidence that would falsify it? Because, you know, for instance, the evolution model, if you can scientifically demonstrate that there is, say, a more evolved organism in a layer of the geological strata that it should not be, like, if you can demonstrate scientifically that there was a bird found all the way down in the pre-Cambrian level, right, where there should not be that would falsify evolution. It's very easily falsified. It's just never happened. That's the thing. So what is the falsification criteria for your God? How do we falsify that hypothesis? And if we can't, if it is an unfalsifiable hypothesis, it doesn't even get into science. Like, we don't put unfalsifiable things into science. We just don't. So it does. Your creationism theory doesn't even count as a hypothesis. It's not even worth considering unless it can be falsified. It's just, they will never put up a falsification criteria. They will basically say, well, it can't be. It can't be because God's, you know, God's too powerful. He plays divine hiddenness. You can never find him. There's no possible way it can. Well, then it's not in science.
They're afraid of creationism. They can laugh at it. They can mock it. They can fulfill what the Bible says that they would do, which...
Yeah, well, I mean, a string theory is one where I don't think we can falsify that either. So I don't believe in string theory. So, you know, as far as origin of the universe goes, or that kind of stuff goes, I really don't know. I will happily say I don't know. And I don't think physicists know either. You know, I think that multiverse, it's possible. Do I believe it? No, because I don't know. Multiverse is another one where the math looks good, but like I said, maths is a pseudo-concrete. It's sort of a language to describe the universe. It's not a real thing itself. So while the math is good and explains a lot of things, it definitely we don't have evidence for it. So I think the problem with string theory is calling it theory. Right, that's the problem with string theory. There's a few things out like that are colloquially known as theories that aren't actual scientific theory, like the theory of gravity or germ theory of disease or theory of evolution. Hey, Tux, good to see you, mate.
Which is, be scoffers of the last days that scoff and mock the Bible. And if you were to type in, you owe your life to a rock, it brings up a paper called You Owe Your Life to Rock. In the way...
Oh, this one's only from 2012. Like, we're going backwards in time here. We're we're sort of going way backwards in time. Look, this is probably going to get into, and this is Kent Hovind's thing. You think you came from a rock. And that is such a straw man of the actual situation. It is an absolute straw man. Like, no, we don't think we came from a rock. We think that mineral elements and chemicals were involved in the formation of life. Those are two totally separate things, right? And it's because I believe it's phosphorus is really important to the development of life. Sure, yeah, phosphorus is important. At some point, hydrogen's important as well, and that's not a rock. That's a gas, or sometimes it's in water, like, come on.
The way that this paper starts out is hilarious.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I didn't notice that, Case. He writes rock versus the plural usage. So it says you owe your life to rock, not you owe your life to a rock. Yeah, good catch. Good catch, Case.
It says, thank goodness for granite. Those are the first words of the paper. It talks about how granite rock is our ancestor. Remember?
No, it doesn't talk about that. It talks about how elements within the granite could have been essential for forming life, essential for it. That doesn't mean we come from a rock. Like, because also say hydrogen is really, really necessary as well. That doesn't mean we came from water or came from gas, right? It's the chemicals in it, the structure of the chemicals in it that make it so, not the thing itself. He's kind of doing a composition division fallacy. He's applying all the properties of rock to the chemicals in the rock, and that's a silly combination. So why does he say we come from a rock and not we come from a rock and gas and liquid? Why is it just a rock?
The rock that we covered earlier that can't be created on purpose somehow created itself by accident and then somehow conceived life. Now, of course, they want to mock the...
Yeah, no one says that a rock got impregnated and conceived. This is more of the straw man. And he learnt this from Kent Hovind, who straw mans so badly. Nobody think a rock conceived. We think chemicals came out of the rock and they're essential for the development of life. But a lot of chemicals were essential for the development of life, as well as energy from the sun. Absolutely essential. I don't know why he sort of says it just is a rock. It's not like it just comes from one thing. Why don't you say then, if sunlight was essential and heating was essential, why don't you say we come from the sun? Why is it a rock?
Virgin birth. But to say that granite rock conceived life, granite rock isn't even living to begin with. At least Mary was alive when she conceived of the Holy Spirit.
The virgin birth, like that little magic trick. No, that's totally plausible now. Totally plausible. Look, I mean, I was talking about this with my wife. Like, seriously, I don't know of a scientific way you'd explain the virgin birth, like, except for maybe parthenogenesis. Like, if Mary did have was a true hermaphrodite, which I don't think we've even really ever seen in humans, and managed to impregnate herself. That is the only possible scientific way you could explain Mary away. There is no other explanation besides miracle or magic. That is basically it.
It's pretty hilarious. I mean, they think that non-life brought life into existence, that unconsciousness brought conscious, sentient material into existence.
Yeah. I think that, sure. You know that sperms and eggs aren't sentient and conscious. Do you know that, Matt? No? Okay, moving on.
That nothing somehow created something. It gets more and more and more insane the more that you look into what atheists and evolutionists actually believe. I heard somebody say one time that it's unbelievable what unbelievers will believe to remain unbelievers.
It's unbelievable what unbelievers will believe to remain unbelievers. It's not really, because a lot of the time we're saying we don't know this or we don't know that. There's just, even if you are wrong about abiogenesis, there's no reason to think a God was involved. There's other hypotheses. This is the false dichotomy that people like him want to present out. They will say, hey, it's either a God or it's just forming itself. Well, no. And forming itself is a really bad way to describe it. It can be natural processes. It can be panspermia, that life formed somewhere else in some other environment and then came to Earth. Hell, it could be aliens. I don't believe that. There's no evidence for it. But just because it's not a god and you say it's not natural doesn't mean the god one is automatically correct. There are other possibilities, right? This is the false dichotomy that they set out. Even when they go to life couldn't possibly have been designed, so it's either a god or it's natural processes. No, because other things can design stuff. It could be aliens. I do not believe that. There is not a shred of evidence to it. But a dichotomy is when there are only two options, only ever two options. So if he said it's either a god or not a god, that is a true dichotomy. It has to fall into one of those two categories, always. One of those will be true. But it's either a god or natural processes is not a true dichotomy. And I can show it's not a true dichotomy by just giving a third option, and that is aliens. Magic. I can give magic as an option. Like there is all billions and billions of options apart from those two that he's given. So it's not a true dichotomy, which means that, hey, it could be some other, it could be some way that we haven't figured out yet. This is sort of God of the gaps almost. Like, well, if you don't know what it is, then it can't be all these other things, so it has to be a God. No, it doesn't have to be a God. You have to show, you have to give evidence for the God, not just argue against other scenarios.
And I feel like that is actually kind of true. It really is unbelievable. We're entering into the twilight zone. Stay tuned. And this paper also says that rocks and minerals must have played key roles in virtually every phase of life's emergence.
Yeah, and the sun played a key role in phases of the existence, and probably water played a key role in some phases of the Earth of life's emergence as well. But you're not saying you think we came from water. You're saying you think you came from rocks. Yeah, I think some of the chemicals did. Yes. Yeah. Sure. What?
Check this out. It says rare meteorite that fell on a UK driveway may contain ingredients for life.
Yeah. So here's the thing. We have found all of the components for RNA in space, which is thymine, uracil. Oh God, I've forgotten the other two. No, that's DNA. CA. Oh, it's RNA. RNA. God, I always forget that one. The base pairs are made up of these chemicals, and we found all of the thymine, guanine, adenine, and uracil. So we found all the ingredients for. Oh no, it's adenine, uracil, guanine, and cytosine. Yeah, no, okay. So it's missing the T. Yeah, so the T is replaced by uracil in RNA as opposed to DNA. So we found all of the ingredients for RNA on meteorites. In fact, Japan found uracil very recently, and they were the one that proposed adenine. Yep, thank you. They were the ones that proposed that the rotation of an asteroid in space could provide the heating and cooling responsible for life to form. So we're not even saying we know it formed on Earth. It could have formed, like early building blocks could have formed on an asteroid and been brought to Earth by crash landing. We don't know. That's the whole point. But, could that have brought the building blocks of life? Absolutely, because we found them all there, the base pairs responsible for RNA. We found them all.
And so in this paper, you can see what they're insinuating. They're insinuating that life ultimately came from a rock.
No, we're not saying that. We're not saying that. And they're not insinuating it either. They're saying chemicals that are necessary for the formation of life came from rocks. Sure. You also need sunlight. You also need phosphorus, which didn't come from space. You also probably need hydrogen, which is a gas. Like, don't think that it's all just, well, yeah. You know, why don't you say we came from the atmosphere then? Because you want to say rocks, because it's a straw man.
Is what they believe, and that's hard to defend that position, that you came from a rock. I can't imagine having to.
Well, yeah, yes. Look, his fan fiction, which is, you know, sort of the Old Testament, the Jewish tradition, the God made them out of clay. In the Old Testament of the Christian Bible, it's out of dust.
Be an atheist and defend this stuff. And if you look at this paper, it says that the ingredients for life in space rocks that fell to the Earth, and it talks about how.
Yeah, so can we look at that second? It also says that it's hydrocarbons, right? Hydrocarbons. Okay, so that's hydrogen and carbon together. So why isn't he saying that we come from gases? Why is it always rocks? Hydrogen is a gas. Why is it rocks? Because saying you came from rocks sounds, it's an appeal to incredulity. He's trying to make his followers incredulous. But a lot of different elements are from a lot of different places. It's not just rocks. Rocks by themselves won't create life. You need a whole bunch of stuff, including the energy from the sun in order to do it. So why don't we come from minerals, gases, liquids, energy from the sun, like all of these things together? It's oversimplifying and a straw man of what actually happened.
And it talks about how these rocks contained liquid water. And so again, they're trying to insinuate that life was created from water that eroded minerals out of rocks. And
oh, he's getting more up to date though. This is 2018. You know, it's only almost 7 years behind. Like, come on, he's updating his information. He's almost into, you know, the 5-year mark of science. It's incredible.
To the scientifically illiterate atheist, he or she.
Scientifically illiterate atheist. Okay, Matt. Wow. Seriously, the actual irony is astounding. I'm going to put some ironies in the chat for that one. The scientific illiteracy of atheists. Wow. Oh, it's December as well. Oh man, I almost forgot. I can give away some readerships. So stick with me, Squid Gang. I'm gonna give away some readerships, and my lovely readers, if I can, if it'll let me. Okay, it's being problematic. Give me 1 second. I will make this thing behave. You just wait. Get out my whacking stick if I need to. Live chat, yeah. Membership. Hello. Oh, this is 100% not working. Oh dear. Oh, I can do super chats. What's going on here? Hold a sec. Let me just reclose this window. I'll reopen it. Oh, there we go. Membership gifting. There we go. Okay. I don't know why this did not work. Gift. All right. Who's a member? Who's a reader? Who is a reader? Woohoo! We have Lorraine Drosfilia, Cusco, Oliver Skrig. Oh, you're killing me. Skrizko. I'm so sorry. I cannot pronounce that. Is that Polish? That is awesome. Skrigs Peskinski. I'm so sorry. That's terrible. Sterling Aaron Colson. Congratulations. Enjoy your emotes and other benefits. Winner, chicken dinner. Everybody in their chat. Nice one. Yeah, fantastic. Sorry, I just had to do that. I always forget to give those away. I try to do it early, so, you know, get it over and done with. So I because I know by the end of the month, I'm going to forget. I'm 100% going to forget. I know that. I know that.
Will just eat this right up. They'll think it's just, oh, this is incredible. This is great knowledge. As Christians, we're supposed to be free thinkers, and we're supposed to be skeptical.
Are you? Are you? I don't think you are. I'm not sure they're supposed to be free thinkers. Free thinkers sort of are supposed to chase out new ideas and stuff. I don't think they are. Maybe.
Of demonstrated lies like these ones that we're looking at.
Okay, that's all right for that one. But I do have another couple of shorter ones, so I want to share these as well because that's absolutely hilarious. Actually, is this one sped up? I'll speed it up a little. Speed it up a little. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it says that. Although, like, there can be a couple of arguments made for that, Viclet. So the other argument to that is it says that the more virtuous person is the person who doubts and believes anyway. But it doesn't encourage doubting. It just says that you're more virtuous if you doubt and believe rather than someone that just believes. So you could make that argument, but I still think it doesn't promote actually sort of embracing other ideas. I really don't think so. And certainly doesn't in practicality because they sort of cherry pick and dismiss anything that doesn't fit with their preconceived notions of what is true and what is false. Okay.
In the center of the United States, we find hundreds and hundreds of dinosaur graveyards. Now, each one of these dots that you see represents a graveyard that contains sometimes hundreds of thousands of fossils.
Yeah, so do we know why that is? Does anyone know why that is? Why we find them there? Basically, it's because due to the eastern coast of America being highly eroded, right? So you need to have a natural covering of these fossils in order for them to be preserved. So you have to have some sort of layer over the top of them. And because the eastern side is heavily, heavily eroded, you generally don't get that layer. That and the California area of America or down towards the region under Canada. What is that? I'm sorry, I'm not from the US. That's sort of the Washington state area. Anyway, there was a massive flood that went to there from the east called the Missoula flood. It was the Missoula floodplains. It's where the glaciers melted and a whole bunch of water came down. And we can tell it was a flood because boulders and stuff have been moved. We can see the scrapings along the ground. Like it's actually wild. You can actually see where boulders, like massive multiple ton boulders, were tossed along by this flood as there was an ice dam preventing the Great Lakes from coming out. And as that melted at the end of the Ice Age, all this water just was dumped into the Missoula floodplain. It's also why that area is so fertile. And sort of so we know that there was these natural events that happened, the erosion in the eastern side and the flood that hit the western side. And that's why there are disparate amounts. But Matt's got another theory. Big
of a wave would it take from the oceanic coast to reach the center of the United States to be able to bury hundreds of thousands of dinosaurs with sea life and crustaceans all in one event?
Yeah, he just said a wave from the eastern part going all the way across America and burying the dinosaurs in the Missoula area, floodplain area. Yep, he said that. So what happened to all the dinosaurs on the eastern side? What happened to them, Matt? What happened to them? What?
What event could cause a wave so huge that it would hit the center of the United States? Only Noah's flood can.
How would that happen? How exactly would that happen? Like a flood, a tsunami, I think he's describing by how big a wave reached over the eastern side. Just stay with me here. Reached over the eastern side, avoided the eastern part, and hit the western part. Is that what we're saying? how big a... Yep, he said that. Yeah, sure. Look, John, I think there is a lot people can take from all kinds of religions and philosophies. I mean, I think Taoism has a lot to offer as far as a philosophy goes, and that's certainly not religious at all. I don't think that just because something's religious, its ideas are necessarily all bad. But I think what you've got to do is evaluate the ideas on the idea, not on any kind of truth that it's promoting. And so we've got to have some way to evaluate that idea against what we're going to use it for. Is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? And the question is, how do we do that? We've got to have some sort of evaluation process. Yeah, Dudism. Yeah, and if you're unfamiliar with Dudism, that's the philosophy from the dude in oh god, what's the film? I've forgotten the film. The Big Lebowski. Yes, The Big Lebowski. Yeah. I get you.
Explain this evidence. Within these graveyards, we find that the dinosaurs died in an asphyxiated position.
That's not an asphyxiated position. That's just the way they died. Birds die the same way. You do know that fossilized birds, they sort of die in the same way. They sort of curl up rearwards as well. I don't know why he thinks this is an asphyxiated way. Like, I don't know why he thinks that. You know, I don't know. It's very strange. I love how it explained Archaeopteryx. Yeah, but the bird fossils, we find the sort of same thing. I don't know why that means a flood. It's yeah. Yeah, that's not asphyxiation. Yeah, no, I don't think it is. It's just the way that they die.
They died from drowning. Let me ask you a question. What would cause 1 million square miles, catch this, 1 million square miles of dinosaurs to be in?
Well, it's not that. It's basically the Missoula Basin floods is what he's referring to. We know that the Missoula Basin flood happened because there's evidence of it. There's a lot of evidence for it. And I'll just get a graphic for you to show you where, but it's not as big as he is saying. That one looks like a good one. So the Missoula Basin flood happened a long time ago, like maybe 20,000 years, I think, roughly 20,000. Is it something like that? Okay, so this is the glacial lake in Missoula. An ice wall broke, flooded down. So basically that area was all flooded. That's basically it. It's not the worldwide flood that he's trying to make out, but it's just that the western half of America is way less eroded than the eastern half. There's a lot more sedimentary layers laid down that haven't been eroded that are able to preserve these fossils, because fossils only happen under very, very specific circumstances, right? So things like tar pits, for instance, that is a way that we can find a lot of fossils. They're set in tar, basically. It's very, very good for fossils. But the eastern coast of America, yeah, not so much. It doesn't mean that a wave jumped the eastern side of America and crashed down on thing. And so if like, here's the problem with that. Yeah, eastern side, we see up towards the northern part western side, the northern part of western US, we find a lot of evidence for floods, like these dragged rocks. The rocks have all the signs of rapid hydraulic erosion in them. Why don't we find that everywhere? Why don't we find it everywhere? Because you said the flood happens everywhere. So why do we have these flood basins where there's clearly been a massive flood. No one's saying that the Missoula Basin flood didn't happen. Absolutely it did. But why is that different than the eastern coast? Why don't we find exactly the same stuff on the eastern coast? Why? Because if the flood happened everywhere, we should see signs of flood everywhere, not just in the Missoula Basin flood valley. I don't know why. And no one's ever answered it for me.
Encapsulated and protected by one flood. We find in one of the graves 10,000 adult Maiasaura. They didn't have any young with them. What that means is they saw the flood coming most likely and they dashed away. They left everything behind, their eggs and their young behind, and they were all buried together in the center of the United States as well.
So he knows that the dinosaurs dashed away, leaving their young from... I mean, I don't know how he knows this. I guess he probably won't explain how he came to this conclusion apart from, well, my Bible says there was a flood. So, you know...
Bible says, whereby the world that then was, being overflowed with water, perished. Notice it says the entire world perished. It's such a powerful case.
Yeah, but it's funny. We've got the Egyptians that went through the time of the flood without a problem. We've got the Japanese that went through the time of the flood, no problem whatsoever. The civilization still survived. We've got the Chinese went through the time of the flood, no problem. They're still there. Funny that, how it drowned everybody in the world, but there's all these civilizations that continued, seemingly unaware that they were destroyed. I don't know how that happens, but, you know, strange that
we have for Noah's flood. Now, the evolutionists and the atheists insist that the way that these dinosaurs died was through an asteroid, and it supposedly wiped out the dinosaurs. Well,
yeah. That's Chilixacub. I can never pronounce that. Pronunciation. Chilixacub. I might have to put an asteroid. Apparently, I don't know how to spell it either. Yeah. Give me the pronunciation. Chicxulub. Yes, so that's Chicxulub, the massive meteor that hit basically in the Gulf of Mexico, causing insane damage. I mean, we didn't know that crater was there just because it was too damn big. We didn't think it would be a crater. But yeah, there's a crater there, and you can see the echo, echo sort of seismology there, like geology there. That's awesome. I mean, it's incredible. But yeah, we see the crater. It definitely happened. We've got a layer of iridium in the geologic layer, right? Iridium is only found on asteroids. We've got a layer of iridium because that asteroid hit. Just wild. Yeah, Austin, spelling it out doesn't help me. Chicxulub.
Get this, an asteroid that struck 2,000 miles away from the heart of the kill zone is responsible for the death of these dinosaurs? Would that make any sense? Inside of these dinosaurs, we find preserved blood cells.
Okay, so by preserved blood cells, that doesn't necessarily mean that they were like, you know, viable. There's no DNA, there's no structure. They're fossilized blood cells. We see the structure of them. I don't think they're actual, you know, preserved blood cells. That's ridiculous. No, we see the structure of blood cells. We don't see actual living blood cells or anything like it. No.
Now you have to ask the question, could blood last for 65 million years? We find that they died from drowning as well.
No, they don't survive 60 Chicxulub. Okay, cool. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, no, well, I mean, look, could they survive? No, the blood cells were dead. No, they were absolutely dead. Like, this is ridiculous. The idea that these blood cells were still living is so silly. I can't even explain how stupid this is. Like, seriously, it's the structure of blood cells that we're saying, not the actual living blood cells. Like, this is the thing. It's sort of, and a good question for these guys is, we get DNA from mammoths and thylacine and recently gone extinct animals. and they say all extinctions were caused in the flood. Well, why can nobody find any dinosaur DNA? Why is that impossible? If the mammoths died at the same time as dinosaurs, why can we find all this mammoth DNA but no dinosaurs whatsoever? Pretty strange, right?
You look at the blood cells, they're positioned in a way that shows that they died from drowning. Just beautiful photos here that show us. And again,
Yeah, see, here's the thing. I don't think they show that they died from drowning, like blood clots were from drowning. And the Triceratops could have drowned. We're not saying that no dinosaur drowned or that, floods didn't happen. Like I said, we're all aware that the Missoula Basin floods happened. The problem is that you're saying it was a worldwide flood, and we know that's not the case because we see where local floods are and the world does not have the same hallmarks. Your claim is just because there was a flood doesn't mean the flood happened.
Believe that dinosaurs lived 65 million years ago. Well, is that really plausible to suggest that blood lasted in the ground for 65 million years? Why is it that we find blood cells? Why is it that we find histones, bone cells, nerve cells?
Yeah, because we don't. We don't. Yeah. It's because we don't. We find the structures there, but they're not the actual cell. Like, they're just fossilized structures that still remain, which is unusual. It is unusual. It's very unusual. But it does happen.
We even find collagen inside of dinosaur bones. Collagen is the soft material that's inside of your bones. Is soft material going to last?
Collagen? No. Like, when you say we found collagen, like, that was basically Mary Schweitzer, which she pleads for people not to misrepresent the work, her work, and yet these guys are still misrepresenting her work, which is so that's obnoxiously wrong. She basically had some collagen that she had to bathe in acid. It was so fossilized, she had to bathe it in acid in order to get it to a point where she could do any analysis on at all. Like, the idea that this is, collagen that you would just find in a human, no, ridiculous. It was highly fossilized.
In deep time, for millions of years. Dinosaur surprise, scientists find collagen inside of a 195 million year old bone. For now, scientists are still trying to figure out how these protein fragments really managed to last so long in the first place.
Yeah, they're highly unusual. And it did make us rethink how long this can last under certain conditions, sure. But as Mary Schweitzer, the person doing the study herself, said, this does not show a young Earth. And then she put a disclaimer on her work saying, please, young Earth creationists, stop misrepresenting my work. And they still do it. It's gross and disgusting, but they will still do it because they have no shame. Anything is fair game for these guys to prove their book and to prove that they're right. Anything. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if they're lying. Doesn't matter if they're misrepresenting people. It's fine as long as their book is held up as the most sacred thing, because that's what they believe. It's gross. It's absolutely gross.
Well, let me tell you, they didn't last millions of years because they didn't die out millions of years ago. We find intact organs, not just blood cells.
We do not find intact organs. No, we do not. We find fossilized. Like this guy thinks that fossilized stuff is the thing itself. No, they're not intact organs. What are you talking about?
But intact organs of dinosaurs that existed in the recent past. Think about that. This one is called Skippy. He's supposedly 113 million years old, but yet he has intestines that are intact, colon intact, liver intact, muscles intact.
So this is basically like, so what was his name? Skippy. So this is a cast fossil, or a cast where basically something makes an impression, and then the rock solidifies or the mud solidifies, and as it solidifies, it leaves an impression of it. It's not the actual organ, and sometimes other rock fills that space, making what's called a cast fossil. It's an impression. It's like footprints. Just because there's footprints in a cast doesn't mean that's actually there. Those are not actual organs. They're not. They have the positions of the organs because the cast was left, the impressions were left. It's not the actual organs.
And a windpipe intact. Is it plausible to suggest that somebody's liver could last for millions of years? Is that plausible? No. It is implausible. Amen, Brother Tim. Amen.
Amen, Brother Tim. Yeah, it would be plausible, but the organs didn't last. They didn't. The impression of them last, and that's an important point.
We find a mummified notosaur. It weighed 2,500 of its original 3,000 pounds, and it still has intestines that were intact. Incredible. And the scientists believe that it was...
Well, fossilized. Like, this is the thing. They don't understand mineralization and fossilization, how the organic cells are replaced with minerals over time. That's what happens with fossilization. They are fossilized. Wow.
Was swept to sea by a flooding river, sank, landed on its back, and pressed into the ocean floor. Noah's flood truly did happen.
No, that's not what that is saying. No.
And we find as well...
Okay, so that's him on the dinosaurs, which he is hilariously incorrect. Now, this is my favorite one. I'll do one more, and that might round us out at a couple of hours, which I usually do for these things. But this is my favorite. This is absolutely my favorite, and this is Matt talking about philosophy, which I just adore. It's like I don't know. It's like a toddler trying to discuss quantum physics. It is incredible. No, John. This is a young Earth creationist, a pretty horrible young Earth creationist. Thinks the world is 6,000 to 10,000 years old and has all of the scientific education of your average house brick. It really is. And this is a really old video. This was only from a month ago, but it sort of is a very, very old, young Alex O'Connor. Sorry, it's a very old video because he's still got he made his own wooden play button. I think when he hit like 10K subscribers and YouTube didn't send him a play button, he made his own kind of thing. It was actually hilarious.
In this video, what I think is the hardest objection to respond to if you're a Christian. The most famous problem that you have if you want to say that the Christian God, that is an all-loving, all-powerful God, exists, is the positively colossal amount of suffering infused into the human experience.
The biggest...
Yeah, so if you're not familiar, this is the problem of evil. The problem of evil basically says that a omniscient, omnipotent, omnibenevolent, so an all-good, all-powerful, and all-knowing being cannot exist because if it was all benevolent, we wouldn't have the suffering we have in the world, because a all-benevolent God would stop the suffering. It can't be benevolent and not stop the amount of suffering. So either it cannot, where it's not all-powerful, or it will not, and then it's not all benevolent. And it has to be omniscient because it has to be aware of the suffering. So it has to know everything as well. So one of these things cannot be true. It's a massive problem for the creationists. I've had discussions, and basically there's two camps. There's one sort of saying who try to say, well, the suffering is actually good in the long term. You'll find people like William Lane Craig doing this, that saying, hey, all the people drowning in the flood was actually, Noah's flood was actually a good thing. And it's like, well, you mean babies dying is a good thing? And he's like, well, yes. And it's like, wow, you're a monster. That's sort of one tack to go at it. The other kind of tact is to sort of say, everything God does is good, but God wants to challenge us, kind of thing, that God wants evil things to happen to us so we can overcome them. But this has got problems too, namely the people that don't overcome it, sort of like, a baby dying of infant mortality, like sudden infant death syndrome or something. Like, how can that possibly challenge a baby to be a better person? It can't. It's ridiculous. That kind of thing, and that brings up a question. In both instances, that brings up a question of why we should prevent suffering. if God has decided that it is good for that suffering to occur, good in the long term, then why should we come up with medicine to alleviate it, or try to help other people through it, or try to wipe out polio or something like that? Why should we try to do anything about it at all if it is God's chosen good for us to go through it? Why should we try to avoid bad situations? Because that bad situation, God could sort of, do it. But, it gets very weird when you get down that end of sort of the problem of evil, that, all of these kids dying is a good thing. It's wild.
This argument against Christianity is actually the biggest argument against atheism.
Yeah, he said that. The biggest argument against Christianity is actually the biggest argument against atheism. How does that work? How does the problem of a omnibenevolent God being able to stop incredible levels of suffering and doesn't bother possibly be a problem for atheists? If the God doesn't exist, there is no problem. If the universe is uncaring and all that happens is we care about suffering, then there is no problem of evil, because the things happening in the universe are either people who absolutely can be evil, and natural evils, like I was saying, babies dying of sudden infant death syndrome, or volcanoes exploding on you. That's not evil. Because here's the thing, evil has to have some sort of malicious intention to it, right? So evil is harm that is done, or some kind of something that ought not to happen, that has some kind of malicious intent to violate that ought, as far as morality is concerned. So when you're talking about evil, under a theistic view, a God view, a volcano is evil. Because a God intended for that to happen. A God said that volcano will happen. Under the Christian worldview, that God said, hey, I'm going to blow up the earth and send rocks hurling out at this time. He orchestrated that to happen. So that is an intentional thing. But under an atheistic worldview, that's not intentional. There's no intent behind it. That's just Earth doing what it does. The volcano doesn't care if we think it's good or bad. It just does what it does. There's no intent at all. So that volcano is only evil under a theistic worldview, and it's an evil that comes from God. Or, as William Lane Craig would say, it looks evil to us, but it's a good that comes from God, apparently. So I don't know how this could possibly be a problem for atheists. It's wild. It's wild.
This is the number one argument against our faith. Who's ever heard of the problem of evil, right?
I would agree. It's probably the best argument against the Christian God. Yes. The Christian God specifically, because if that God, and sort of some Calvinists say this, so you get Calvinists who say, yeah, God does evil. He's not omnibenevolent. Then the problem of evil isn't a problem for them. There's another problem, which is, why should we follow a God that's evil or worship a God that's evil? I mean, that's a problem then. But the problem of evil isn't a problem if the God's a dick, if the God's horrible, if the God's, sort of Old Testament God that gets angry and does horrible things to horrible people. So, it's not a problem for Calvinists, because they just say, yeah, God can be evil all he wants. That's fine. And I'm like, well, that doesn't sound fine, but sure, the problem of evil is not your problem. So yeah, it isn't a problem for atheists, though. Like, it really isn't.
People will say that since bad things happen, there must not be an all-loving God. Well, I wrote this here because I didn't want to miss it. People often base whether they believe in God based on their experiences.
Sure. I mean, we base a lot of our belief based upon experiences, but our experiences are perception, and perception can be wrong. Really, we're looking for a more reliable way to tell whether our experiences are what we actually believe, whether that experience matches what we have constructed as a mental mental model in our head, right? So I'll give you an example of what I mean. You hear a sound, you think it's a ghost kind of thing. Oh, a ghost in my house. Really, we want some way to reliably say whether that is true or whether it was the plumbing that groaned or whether it was some other thing that happened, right? We want to come up with a methodology that will give our mental constructs the best view of reality it can. So make our mental model of the universe match with what we observe, what we see around us, and what we have. So yeah, your experiences are your beliefs are based upon your experiences, sure, but I don't think you should just believe everything if that's what your experience was. And that's where skepticism comes in. You sort of, just because you experience something doesn't mean you should believe anything.
Let me say this. What if there is no God? Will evil things ever be made right?
What do you mean, will evil things ever be made right? Will evil things ever be made right? No. Evil's just evil. It's immorality. It is. But then you get into a long conversation of what is morality. And he doesn't think atheists have morality at all. He thinks we are completely amoral. We don't have right and wrong, which obviously atheists do have right and wrong. Absolutely have right and wrong. And I think that without things magically being made right in an afterlife, it compels us to make them right in this life, right? It empowers us to try and fix things in this life rather than saying, hey, it'll all be fine after I die. Yeah, that's not really what we should do. We should try to strive for, I mean, really he's talking about justice, I think, like having some sort of justice. That's why we strive for justice in this life. It's why we strive for equality in this life and sort of, making things better in this life because we don't have a next one to fall back on. So from my point of view, there's no reason to accept things are going to be made better in some next life. So it's important we do it in this one. And I think Matt's missing that.
All the bad things that have happened to you in your life, all of the horrible atrocities throughout all of history, will they ever be made correct again?
Well, we can't change the past, Matt. Will they ever be made correct again? I don't think that there's any scenario when some of the atrocities in the past will ever be made correct. They've already happened. I don't, will the wars and stuff ever be made correct? What do you mean by that? Is God going to wipe the wars away from the past? What's happening here? Or is he trying to say, hey, he's going to sort out the good people from the bad? I don't know. It's a really weird to say, hey, everything's going to be corrected after you die, rather than us going, hey, this was fucked up. We've got to actually make sure this doesn't happen again.
If there's no God, it'll just always forever be hopeless, won't it? If there's no God. So who's the problem of evil for? Who's it a problem for? Is it for an atheist or for a Christian? Problem of evil is for atheists.
No, the problem of evil is not for atheists. The problem of evil is saying there is an omnibenevolent, omnipotent, omniscient God that could prevent all of the evil, but does not. That's the problem of evil. He doesn't even understand the problem. He's saying, if you believe in a God, then you believe that things will all be made right. All of the inequities, injustices, and all of this stuff will all be made right. And if you're an atheist, you don't believe that everything will all be made right in the future. You're just going to die. And so will everybody else. The problem with that is called the argument from consequence. And I'll explain what that is. The argument from consequence is basically going, if this is true, then I don't like the entailments or consequences of that. So it's like saying, well, if I don't win the lottery, I won't be able to pay my rent. So I'm going to believe I'm going to win the lottery because that's what I want. It is wishful thinking, right? It is absolutely wishful thinking. So he's saying, well, if a God doesn't exist and people aren't judged into good and bad after they die and either rewarded or punished, then all of that stuff that happened isn't made right by that. Okay, but that's no reason to believe it. That is saying, I like the consequences of one, the entailments of one thing over the other thing, right? I like the consequences of it being right, therefore it's right. But I would also put forward that if you think things are going to be made right, no matter what they are, then it will provide you less incentive to fix anything, right? If you think that, hey, it doesn't matter what happens in this life, and if I suffer or if my family suffers, we're going to be rewarded in the next one, why fix your current life? Why try? Why try to improve the world? Especially if your faith happens to believe that the world is coming to an end. Why fix anything? You know, these people, Kent Hovind believes that the rapture and the end of the world is going to happen before he dies. And that man is old, really old. How old is that guy? And this guy learnt from the crotch of Kent Hovind. Like, seriously, he's 71. So he easily thinks it's going to happen easily within the next 30 years. And you know, an injustice would be Kent Hovind living that long. But, you know, that's only the good die young. You know what I mean?
They don't have a solution for it, but we have the ultimate solution for evil. Let me tell you, there were...
Well, that's true. That's true. Yeah, no, that's true. Well, it's not a worldview. And I get what you're saying. You could believe in reincarnation, for instance, you know, and that would be a godless reincarnation would still be an atheist. But I get what he means. I think he means sort of materialist, you know, like the sort of the atheists as in new atheists, the ones that don't believe in any afterlife, any supernatural things. Maybe more accurately would be the materialist. Would be more accurate, or perhaps skeptic. Probably materialist would be more accurate.
Two men that went to war. One was a Christian and one was an atheist. And the Christian went to war and he said, if you saw what I've seen in my life, you wouldn't believe in God.
Yeah, so another story, you know, next time in What Never Happened, like, who are these people? So two soldiers went to war. The Christian said, hey, there's so much evil in the world, you couldn't believe in an omnibenevolent God. He would definitely step in to stop it. That I understand.
Became an atheist. You wouldn't believe in God anymore. But then an atheist went into the army, went into warfare, and he became a Christian. And you know what he said? If you've seen what I'd seen, you'd know that there's a God and that one day all of this is going to be made right.
Yeah, so that I don't get. I'm not saying it didn't happen. Like, I'm not saying an atheist has never become a theist. That certainly happened. But like, why would somebody see all this suffering and then go, unless they were really trying to deal with it, saying, hey, you know, I want there to be some kind of reason for all of this. And I get that. That's a very, very, it's a very seductive thought that, you know, if we're suffering and you go, well, there has to be some reason for all of this. I get that. It's a very seductive thought, but we have no reason to think that except that we want it to be true. And so if you just do wishful thinking, if you believe stuff that you wish were true, then you're susceptible to confirmation bias. You will see things to confirm your belief where they do not exist.
Look, our experiences, the point is, our experiences do not determine what the truth is. It's not all about us and our experiences. It's about fact, science, and ultimately what God has revealed in his word. Science.
It's not about our experiences. It's about fact, science, and what ultimately, but don't forget, it's what God has revealed in his word. Seriously, dude, is that a good methodology? Which God? Which God exactly? Oh, your God. Oh, funny that. It's always your God. Yeah, no, it's amazing how many times when they say follow the one true God, they don't mean somebody else's one true God. They mean their own one true God. Kind of strange, isn't it?
Science means to know. We can know for sure that there is a God.
Science does not mean to know. It's methodological naturalism. That's just the origin of the word science. Methodological naturalism is making observations in the natural world around us and investigating in a systematic way the natural processes that led to what we observe. That's it. That's it. That's all. They sort of try to co-opt science to mean, hey, it's our knowledge of God that's science. No, it isn't. It's a method, and it has to be applied as that method. You can't use the method if there's nothing to observe. You can't. And if you observe something, you have to be able to investigate it, and we can't investigate a God. It will become science when we can investigate it, but we can't.
And that he loves us. Think about that. Two men, one a Christian, one an atheist, and they completely swapped worldviews because we can't base what we believe on our experiences. The Bible says that the last enemy that shall be destroyed is death. Did you know death is the enemy? Death is not good. I believe it's God's will for every single person to live out their life to a healthy old age.
Well, if it's God's will for everyone to live out their life to a healthy old age, then why do lives get cut short? Why do people die in unbearable agony? Here's a good one for you that sort of I've mulled on for a while. Right up until very recently in our history, I think about 1700s, people used to 1928. So people used to die horribly of infections, like screaming in agony. You used to break a leg. Yeah, you could overcome it, but generally people died from that stuff, from just infection, until we invented penicillin. If you wanted a holy book and you wanted people to live to a healthy old age, I think the first thing you would do is put penicillin, how to make penicillin, which isn't too hard in that book. Seriously, just use penicillin. Why does a God want to stop suffering and doesn't tell us about penicillin? Why is that? For a laugh? Doesn't care? It's wild, right? God wants you to live old and healthy, but he gave you malaria. Sucks to be you. Why? Crazy.
And to pass on into eternity. But let me tell you, the last enemy that shall be destroyed is death. But if atheism is true, they have a real problem of evil, don't they?
No, because you don't understand the problem of evil. It's why, if God wants you to live healthy, long life, as you just claimed, and has the power to let you do so, and wants that to happen, what is stopping him? One of those has to be untrue. Either God doesn't have the power to do so, or he doesn't want you to live a long, healthy life. And you might say, oh, we sinned and stuff. Fine, then God wants you to die early because of the sins of the whatever, but that doesn't make him all good. It's very strange.
Look, if you're an atheist, there's no way to determine what's right and wrong.
Sure there is. Sure there is. Absolutely. So it depends on what you classify as right and wrong. Now, I think there's no way to objectively say what your meta-ethical goal is, what you're after in society. I think that most humans would care about the flourishing of society, their own well-being, and to a lesser degree, the well-being of all of the humans around them. I think that is sort of ubiquitous. I won't say that is universal, which means that absolutely everybody believes that, but I think that sentiment, the best for us, is pretty ubiquitous, even if that us is only your own country or your own community. I think that we have this social blinkers on where it concerns other community and othering people, saying, hey, they're not one of us, they're one of them, kind of thing. I think there's problems there with humans, but I think that most or almost all people care about them, their family, their sort of circle of community, at least, if not their country, and the nation that they're in. So that's ubiquitous. So if we can all agree that that is our goal, then we can come up with things that will work towards that and won't work towards that. So essentially, that's morality. What we ought to do to get to that goal and what we ought not to do to get to that goal. So if you do care about, say, your family, for instance, you may say, hey, we ought to have a law to prevent people from getting killed. Why? Because having that law will get you to the goal of your family not being killed. That's essentially how it works. It is subjective, but it's intersubjective. It is shared between a group of people. And this is where we sort of talk about ethics rather than morality. Like what I do and how I move through society is morality. And what I think we ought to do is morality. Ethics is the system that governs a lot of people together, and that is intersubjective. It's subjective, but it's held by a whole bunch of people. So if we basically say, hey, if I want humans to prosper, there are things we ought to do to get to that and things we ought not to do to get to that. And we can demonstrate that using science and reason pretty well. I mean, psychologists do understand that there are things humans need in order to be well. Like if you lock somebody in solitary for most of their life with very minimal food, they will not be a well human being. They will not. So we can say, hey, we ought not to lock people in solitary for huge amounts of time and not give them food because they are not well and I'm looking for human well-being. So we do have a moral system. It's just what they want to say is because it isn't objective for God, it's not real. Well, I hate to break it to you, laws aren't real either. We made them up. We made them up. They're not real. But violate the law and see how far you get. Are they real? No, they're a social construct, just like morality is. But like just because, and you might say, hey, well, then you can just choose to do whatever. No, I can't, because just say I am a horrible person and I think that stealing is right. That's wonderful. I can steal all I want. It doesn't matter how much I believe it. The rest of society isn't going to think it's moral. And that's what I mean by intersubjective. We share between us this moral standard, or rather an ethical standard that says, hey, stealing is wrong. And it doesn't matter how much I believe it. It doesn't matter. It will not make it right. And because it is so bad for society and the human experience of our societies, the society will never see that as right. Is that objective? No, not really. You've still got to care that the well-being of humans and the well-being of society is important. But at least we can discuss what's good for humans and what's bad for humans. I would like there to be an objective morality. Some atheists argue for objective morality. I know that Graham Oppy argues for a objective morality. I think that there are some objective things that are good and bad for humans, but I don't hold that is automatically what morality is. I think you've got to agree that what's good for humans and bad for humans is morality first. And that, I think, is, oh, Sam Harris? Yeah, no, I don't think Sam Harris just defines human well-being as morality, Machine Elf. And I think that's a step too far. I think that you have to come to agree that human well-being is actually what morality is. So morality is, there's two things to morality. There's a descriptive moral system. So when you go, oh, the morals of Japan or whatever, or the morals of this Japanese person are a terrible kind of thing. You're describing their morals. Usually when we're talking about prescribing or what people should be doing or ought to be doing, we're talking about normative morality or normative ethics. It's basically saying It's the code of conduct in which which all reasonable people, or all rational people, sorry, would agree on, essentially, that would say, hey, that's a right thing to do. So I think that Sam Harris is saying, okay, everyone agrees that human well-being is important, kind of thing. And so that is what morality is. But I'm not sure it's the case. I don't think that's universal. And objective means that it's not stance dependent. I think that even if everybody in the world agreed that human well-being, they had the stance that human well-being is important, I don't think that makes it objective. That's still a stance that you have that has no basis in sort of, nature. Like, I don't think the natural world with lions and zebras and stuff really considers humans to be the most important thing. Is it desiring well-being universal? Well, yeah, universal for all rational people, kind of, yeah, I would say so. Although it gets difficult. Morality always is. It's one of the most complex subjects that you will ever get into. Some things might be more important to people than their own well-being, depending on the time. I'm not 100% sure that is the top priority. Is it? And it gets fuzzy, because are survival mechanisms universal? Like, are we all inbuilt to try and survive? Well, yeah. So is it objective? Survival mechanisms are objective, but I don't think that survival mechanisms would rise to the level of morality. Like, I've had this discussion before. I don't think animals have morality. I think that the more social ones have formed a sort of proto-morality, like something approaching morality, but I don't think it is there yet, because it has to be a code of conduct, right? It has to be an actual system that they're following. So I don't think that sort of the idea of my own well-being is necessarily a moral position. I think that's simply intuitive self-preservation, and I don't think that's a moral system. It may, yeah, I mean, it gets kind of fuzzy, but so the best for yourself, it doesn't really give you a moral system, in my opinion. Look, Graham Oppie disagrees. He thinks probably evolution does it. And I respect his opinion. He's a very good philosopher. Very, very good. I would probably agree. Well, actually, I was thinking more of the capuchin monkeys, to be honest with you. I think that they show, like, if a capuchin monkey lies about there being a predator to steal food, they will actually get thrown out of the tribe. There's definitely consequences, kind of thing. Yeah. Well, see, here's the thing, Machine Elf. I think that that's a subjective view. I think that's a subjective view. I'm on board with it. I'm absolutely on board with human well-being and the well-being of society, but I think that's a subjective. So that's called meta-ethics. Okay, so it's like morality and ethics are what we ought to do. Meta-ethics is like the goal we're trying to get to by what we do, kind of thing. So I think that is subjective. I really do.
And so everything is based on feelings. Remember, it's about a feeling rather.
Okay, buddy. We're not the ones that get together in a church and hold their hands up and sort of, feel the love of God, kind of thing. This is real projection from him. There's never been so many people I've seen sort of locking in on their feelings than the Christians in a revival kind of thing. I mean, it is all feeling. How do you know the Holy Spirit? Oh, well, you feel it. Really? Like, this is the irony. He's like, oh, these scientific types, they're all about feelings. We literally are trying to eliminate bias or feelings from their work. You don't write a paper and go, well, I felt like, I felt like the element changed to a whatever color. Come on now.
Than what fact is and what science has shown us and the things that we can know for sure. It's more about emotions. And so we're left.
How this man has never read a scientific paper. I challenge you, find a scientific paper on chemistry and trying to find how the author feels about it. Like, seriously, this is what you're taught in university. You actually are taught, you don't write how you feel about, you only write objective statements of empirical stuff, that you don't write how you feel. Like, this is the thing. He just doesn't understand it at all.
With emotional experiences and just feelings that would tell us what to do if there is no God. And a lot of people are going to have a lot of different feelings. And so it's going to be nothing but.
Okay, Hitler was not an atheist. Hitler was not an atheist. Like, okay, so this is a contentious issue. In my opinion, Hitler wasn't an atheist. He wasn't a Christian either. He was this weird occultism that he practiced, but he talks about divine, the divineness of his race. He talks about how God will give them victory, kind of thing. He talks a lot about the divine nature of a lot of things. He talks about supernatural things. He talks about winning the war through divine favor. He wasn't an atheist, but I don't think he was a Christian either. He hated the Catholics. He never deconverted from being a Catholic, right? He was baptized a Catholic. He never deconverted, but he hated the Catholics and hated the Catholic Church. He seemed to believe in almost a sort of an occult paganish kind of God, a blood father kind of God. It was almost Germanic in a way. So he wasn't an atheist, but I don't think he was a Christian either. He had some weird freaking beliefs. Although sort of nominally he was a Christian because he was baptized a Catholic and never renounced it. I dislike when people say that he was a Christian as well.
Chaos if we take an atheistic.
You know what? A better example is Stalin, because he definitely was an atheist. You know, if you're gonna, no, like Austin, please, no. I just said I don't think he was a Catholic. No, he hated the Catholic Church. I don't think he was.
Perspective of the origin of the universe and of our existence. And so I've actually asked certain atheists, would you become a Christian if Christianity were true? And they will say no.
Well, I mean, would I become a Christian if Christianity was true? Well, whether it's true and whether you should worship that God is two totally separate questions. If we're talking, if Christianity was true and Jesus is actually all benevolent and kind and will actually do things for people and all of this kind of stuff, then yeah, maybe. But if we're talking the God of the Old Testament, he is a dick. He is a dick to women and children. He is a horrible character, probably the vilest character in all of literature, in all of mythology. Zeus had nothing on Yahweh. I'll give you the tip right now. Yahweh did some horrible stuff. Moses at one point had to convince Yahweh not to kill everybody again because he lost his temper. Yahweh was absolute terrible.
And that shows us that they're more about emotions. They're more about feelings.
Yeah, that is 100% true, Eve. They did first sign a treaty with him. But I think what we see from the history is that sort of he hated anybody that had any power. So he used the church and worked with the church, but he hated the church because he hated anybody with power. And the church had a lot of power over the German people. If you want to talk about the German World War II soldiers, in general, they were absolutely Catholic. Majority of them were Catholic. There's no doubt about that. They had Gut mein uns written on their belts, that God with us, that they were absolutely majority Catholic.
And experiences instead of demonstrated fact.
If I believed that God exists, and I believed that it was the Bible God that existed, I would not worship it.
And that shows us that they're more about emotions. They're more about feelings and experiences instead of demonstrated fact.
No, like the Bible does show that he's a very nasty piece of work. He describes Jesus that way, sure, but what we have to like sort of separate is what he said in public and what he thought in private, kind of thing. And there are some letters that suggest that he really hated hated Christians because they had power, like especially the Catholics. The Catholic Church had this power, and he hated anybody who could be even a slight threat to him, like any kind of power. Yeah, exactly. And it seems to be an amalgamation of Christianity, Germanic influence. He was a whack job. He was absolutely insane man. But he definitely was not an atheist. Just his talk of divine and his revelations of divinity and the holiness of it just, there's no way he was an atheist. There's no way. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because don't forget that he was like the biggest thing that people like that do if they hate a certain race, right? If they hate a certain race, don't forget that a lot of the Christian history has been blaming a certain race, the Jewish race, for killing Jesus, right? But of course Jesus was a Jew. Of course he was. But for Hitler, if he says, well, Jesus was one of us, being the correct race, then he can sort of say, hey, we've got to take out these people because they killed our Aryan hero, which is horrible and evil and vicious and nasty, but that wasn't the worst he did. Let's put it there. Anyway, yeah, so that's Matt Powell, and I'm usually very guarded, and I refrain from calling people stupid or unintelligent, or, I'll usually keep to, hey, you're ignorant, which can be true. I'm ignorant of a lot of things. I don't know how the world, the universe got started. I am ignorant of that. I know about Big Bang, but I'm ignorant of the start of the universe. I'm ignorant about all kinds. I'm ignorant about cars. I don't know anything about them. I'm useless with them. That's okay. I don't mind about that. But Matt Powell is actually someone I would go so far as say he is fucking stupid. But yeah, he doesn't have the first idea of how to actually think through a process. It seems like he doesn't want to think through a process. His brain seems to not want to even consider other ideas, which is so hilarious because he says, oh, we're the open-minded ones, and he doesn't legitimately consider somebody else's idea. That is the hallmark of an open mind. You can consider an idea, you can mull it over in your head, and you don't have to believe it. That is what an open mind is. I can accept an idea as somebody's idea. I can think about it. I can put all kinds of hypotheticals on it. I can examine it, mull it over, but I don't have to believe it. And that is the hallmark of a truly open mind. And I see a lot of this, like, you'll sort of say as a hypothetical, and people say, oh, I don't like hypotheticals. It's like, what? Why? Why? I mean, I'd understand if it was an unrealistic hypothetical. Like if you're saying, would you believe in God if he came down and smacked you across the face? And it's like, well, I would certainly be, reevaluate my choices. Absolutely. I think I would need a bit more evidence, but sure. But it hasn't happened. It's like when they sort of say, oh, if someone had their head cut off and then they walked out of the theater. I think I saw that in a Matt Dillahunty debate. And it's like, well, have that happen and then we'll start to talk. Like, why are these hypotheticals always so unrealistic? But if you sort of say, well, as a hypothetical, if we make it to, in a few thousand years, and people go, oh, no, I don't do hypothetical. Come on, seriously. Well, yeah, it depends on what you call unvalid, Machine Elf. But yeah, I'm going to leave it there. But I think Matt Powell is like absolutely horrible. He is a horrible person. And but what's interesting is he has the worst arguments. I mean, they're worse than Kent Hovind's, and that is a high bar to clear. That is doing. If you're worse than Kent Hovind, you are doing. I don't know, well or badly. I don't know which. Maybe both. I think that I've met bricks with more intelligence than this man. It's incredible how little he thinks about what he's actually going out and preaching to people. You know, like, he doesn't think about a wave that skips the eastern coast from the east of the US and misses the eastern coast and jumps over. You haven't thought about that at all? Apparently not. Apparently not. Yeah, maybe. I mean, that may be true. That may be true. Oh, look, yeah. I mean, like, professional apologist, but I mean, he's insane. I think he's a troll as well, so I don't give much attention to him. But anyway, thank you so very much for joining me. All in all, I find Matt Powell to be, I mean, he's hilarious. He's the dumbest guy around. It's shocking how poor his arguments are. Just shocking. But thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps me out a great deal, helps us grow, helps us get more stuff out like this. Thank you very much to the Squid Gang for coming over. It was really good to see you, actually. Some awesome comments in the chat. I really enjoyed it. So thanks, everybody. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to each other. If well-being of yourself is any priority for you, you can be kind to other people as well, because reciprocity is a thing. If you be kind to others, you will live in a society that will be kind to you. And that's really what we want. A reciprocal society where helping other people will have you helped, and then there's always going to be a time when we need help too. So think about that. Anyway, do take care, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.